So my name is Mia Baker.
I'm Mary Duet.
And we did the Rural Food Access Internship for this summer. And so the definition of rural, it's kind of confusing. There's a lot of different ones. But according to the U.S. Department of Health and Services, basically they describe rural communities as anything that's not urban. So anything that's not in a city, anything that's not, your usual urban area is considered rural. So it's mostly farmland. Their primary production is crops, obviously, because it's not in the city. And an interesting fact is rural areas occupy 90% of the United States, but only 16% of the population lives in these areas, which is kind of a crazy comparison.
So we talk a lot about food access, but it spans a lot of different varieties that we want to look at. So we kind of talk about the 5 A's. So these are the issues that people struggle with in the parishes that we work with. And it could be in urban settings, but rural settings are largely underserved, so that's where we put our focus on in the state of Louisiana. So the first thing is availability. So what kind of supplies do they have of food? Accessibility, can they even get there? Do these residents have cars? Do they have sidewalks? Do they have a shoulder on the road if they don't have a car that they can walk to the stores? Then we want to talk about affordability. Healthy food is usually a little bit more expensive, so that's definitely something to take into consideration when most of the residents are poor and maybe on food stamps or the SNAP program, WIC, or anything like that. So then accommodation, this is related to store characteristics, so what hours are these stores open? Do the citizens love them? Because that's kind of important that they have good relationships with the citizens. And then acceptability, so residents' attitude towards whether or not the food meets their standards. So we went into plenty of grocery stores where they say they have fruit, but all the fruit is pretty much rotten because no one buys it, right? So these are kind of the areas that we look at when we talk about food access.
So our amazing boss is Dr. Denise Coulson. She's not here today because she's doing a bunch of other things. She actually found out her CDC grant was accepted today, so really good for her. But she's amazing. She's an assistant professor for the School of Nutrition and Food Sciences, and she's also a nutrition extension specialist, so we worked a lot with her. We kind of helped her on anything that she needed. This is a picture of us. We were at
It's not us.
Or Dr. Holton for a training that we attended, and we just kind of helped her set up. We pretty much just did whatever she told us to do, which meant helping her on the target parishes, which we'll talk about. But yeah, she's awesome.
So the citizens that we're talking about, all of the stuff that we were doing was research-based community approaches. So our citizens are influenced by various factors, which leads them to perform certain behaviors that are correlated with various health outcomes. So you might not even know it when you go to the grocery store, but something's probably affected your behavior when you buy stuff. So by adjusting these influences, we can then change behavior in these communities. Behavior change leads to better health outcomes. We mostly talked about obesity, but while obesity is one thing, it also has outlying stuff like diabetes and other coronary health diseases. So the path to behavior change is daunting if the environment is not able to help them make the healthy choice, the easy choice.
So we worked a lot with PSC changes, which stands for Policy, System, and Environmental Changes. We actually took a course starting this internship by the University of Minnesota. It was an online course that all nutrition extension specialists or agents had to take. And it was called the Systems Approaches to Healthy Communities. And what it did is it took PSC changes and it took this model, which is a socio-ecological model, and it kind of described how these changes affect people's decisions and how these decisions affect their behavior. Like she was just explaining, behavior change is really kind of difficult, but it starts with their changes in all of these different aspects, their individual, interpersonal, and so on. So just different factors that affect behavior. So if a person attempts to adopt a healthy lifestyle, they are influenced by policy, systems, and environment, factors that reinforce their current behaviors.
So the CDC grant that we worked with was called Healthy Communities, and there's about 5 different phases to this. So it first starts out with needs assessment. So we looked across the state of Louisiana and we said which parishes need us most, right? Then, because like I said, this is a community-based approach, we look towards building coalitions in communities because these members of the community are the ones that know their community, know what they need, and how to make the changes. So we want to build that network in those communities. Then we definitely do action planning and implementation. And then at the end of this, all CDC grants call for reevaluation, so then we check our progress. And so, yeah, that's kind of the phase of CDC grant.
So these are the 7 target parishes that this grant that we were working. So we kind of came in at a weird time. We came at the end of one CDC grant and the beginning of another CDC grant. The one that Dr. Holston just finished writing and that she just received is target these 7 parishes. So it's Claiborne, Morehouse, East Carroll, all the way at the top. East Carroll is actually the poorest parish in the United States, which is kind of discouraging. It's in our state. And then Madison and Tensas right below that. And then we have St. Helena and Assumption kind of towards the bottom. So we spent most of our time in St. Helena, Madison, and Tensas Parish. And we spent a lot of time driving. We literally spent half of our internship in a car and half of it in the office. We spent a lot of time driving to these parishes to do, like she said, needs assessments, coalition meetings, and things like that.
So, like I said before, how we're going to evaluate to see if this environment is a good place for us to do some work. All of those parishes had to have obesity rates of 40% or higher. And then another thing we want to look at is what does this community have in terms of food access, right? So me and I went into a bunch of grocery stores and we completed these things called NEMS, which is Nutrition Environment Measurement Surveys. And it's a tool for us to describe and measure where people are eating and what kind of food they have access to. Right, so these environments play a huge role in people's behaviors, like we've mentioned. And then there's 2 different types in the original version and then the reduced version.
So there's kind of a big difference between both. The original version is much longer. It's like 10 plus pages, and the reduced version is only 3 pages. The original goes into much more detail, goes into food quality, like vegetable quality, fruit quality, and it compares the pricing of different options and how that affects people's behavior. With the reduced version, all right. The reduced version, it just determines whether a store or restaurant or anything has fruit or vegetables. But we did use the reduced version whenever we did NEMS research. So we did use the reduced versions for all of the NEMS research that we did, because we did do one original research, which I'll show in the next one. So this is kind of the difference. So just for milk, the original version of NEMS for grocery stores has a whole page. So we have the brand of milk, how much it is per gallon, half gallon, or if it's a whole half. It's like I can see it goes into a lot of detail. With the reduced version, it's just one question, whether they have milk or they don't. So, and it just, you can use the reduced version is there to help. It kind of saves time when you have to do 4 grocery stores in one day. But the original version, there's a big difference, but you can kind of use both when you're doing
So we said now we're going to try to build a community coalition, right? So who's invited? Literally anyone that wants to be a part of this effort, we want you to come. So children, youth, school-based, police juries, these healthcare professionals, WIC, which stands for Women, Infant, and Children, Parks and Recreation, Housing Authority, you name it, we want you there. So these are some of the people that know their community best. They know how we can help them best, right? Every parish was so different of what would work for them and what's the easiest for us to do. So the goal is to improve the health behaviors of Louisiana citizens. And so the whole idea is to promote health and wellness, which 2 areas of focus was physical activity and then healthy eating. The objective is to develop an active work group of community members who are engaged in identifying and implementing these strategies that we have. So these are just a bunch of pictures from these community coalitions. So we'll kind of go over them, be like, what are your top 3 areas of need that you think are the most important, and then the top 3 that you think would be the easiest to implement. So it could be, we think it would be easiest to implement a school garden, but the most important one would be that we want new walking pass in our park or something like that. So it's, like I said, it's different for each parish.
And this is just some of the implementations that have been accomplished through this grant. So one of them is a grocery store intervention. So they developed partnerships with different grocery stores, and they developed a healthy checkout aisle. So when you go to the grocery store, you have all the candy next to you whenever you check out, so it's more easy for you to pick a candy bar than, something else. But the healthy checkout aisles are going to have fruit next to you, or vegetables, or something that's much healthier for you to pick when you're checking out than a candy bar. And then farmers market and orchards. We did go to the St. Helena Farmers Market that had just started when we started. And so we went to the second one. It was actually very interesting. We sat there all day and we met some of the local farmers. They were super, super sweet. And we kind of talked to them and kind of figured out what they liked and what they liked about the farmers market, what they didn't like, and kind of what they aimed to sell. Also, we did nutrition education for youth. So we did, those are pictures of us, we did do chef camp in St. Helena Parish. And we spent the whole week, we would drive up and back every day. That was kind of difficult. But we spent the whole week teaching kids how to cook certain healthy foods. So we had a meal planned for every day, and we would teach them how to cook and different physical activities they can do at home. A lot of them really liked, some of them didn't really like what we had to cook, but we got some of them to eat a good bit of what we have on the menu. And then smarter lunchrooms and breakfast on the go. So that stand is actually a stand that they have implemented in a lot of
that one's in St. Helena.
Oh, that is in St. Helena? Yeah, that's what I thought. So that's a lot of stands that they do have that are in the front of the school. So when students come to school, a lot of students don't eat breakfast in the morning, but it's one of the most important meals that you should eat. So it's a stand that they'll have for students to just grab breakfast in the morning on their way to class, and teachers will let them eat it in the class to make sure that every student at least has breakfast in the morning.
And then, like I talked about, so now we want to enhance the physical activity environment. So a cool thing is that we have these stencils from the CDC, and we bring them to pretty much any parish that we work in, and we paint them at local parks. And it's cheap. It's a really easy way. It doesn't have huge park equipment, but it's to get kids moving and families moving. And then the center, we worked with the Center of Planning Excellence, so also CPEX, and they've done a lot of work in Baton Rouge. They conducted a complete streets workshop that it's really important in these parishes. Like I said, a lot of these people don't have cars, so now we want to look at how do we make this a safer environment for people to walk and be moving in. So maybe more pedestrian walkways or a shoulder on a road that's extremely busy that goes to a few of their grocery stores or anything like that. So we work with CPEX because we are not construction management or street builders in Nepal.
So our favorite part, so believe it or not, we did not know each other before this internship. We didn't even know that there were two of us in this internship until the first day. So, we actually are pretty good friends now, I'd say. We spent a lot of our time together, so kind of came with the package. But our favorite parts, my favorite part definitely was getting to work with, we worked with a lot of people in the AgCenter extension part of it. Dr. Wilson's amazing. We work with Jamila, we work with Bianca Plant, who is the agent up in St. Helena a lot, because we were back and forth there all the time. So I enjoyed meeting a bunch of different people, and for future paths, I actually got offered a student worker position to continue working with Dr. Wilson, so I'll pretty much be sitting at my desk doing exactly what I'm doing right now, which is pretty cool. And I work for the CDC actually, so I'll help her with any grant help she needs, or basically anything to keep up the grants she's doing.
My favorite part was chef camp. Kind of had like 4 girls that clung to me the entire week, and it was really great because some of them had never even had like a black bean before they came, and it was really cool to get to watch them try these different things, even though they did not like some of it. It was tough. How do you convince 5, 8-year-olds that black beans are really cool to eat? And then, like Mia said, we kind of became, I'd say, best friends this summer. My least favorite part was driving with Mia. She's awful at driving. So it was awful. Almost died. Made it here today. Then, but yeah, so you're going to talk about your future path? Oh yeah, you talked about it already. So my future, I'm trying to go to medical school, so it was really great to spend the summer seeing a lot of this community-based, how they're kind of creating, and these behaviors are creating these chronic diseases that one day I'll be dealing with patients with, to get kind of a full understanding of a patient's lifestyle behind the office visit. And if not, that doesn't work out, me and I could create a industrial mac and cheese business for the amount of mac and cheese that we made at Chef Camp, as you can see right there. We made like massive vats of it for children to eat.
And Mary actually got into her, she got offered to go to interview with her medical school today. She found out today. So that's why it was super exciting. That's why she had to run
Thankful
out
for the
and-
practice today.
Yeah.
That was great.